Habits are being talked about so much. Change your habits and you change your life. One of the most popular books in personal development is Atomic Habits. And you also have 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Every single thing is about habits. And you've read the books, you watch the content. You also know the habits that would make you successful. But if you are really honest, when you focus on these habits, do you experience a significant change in your life? Because in most cases, you don't. I would even argue in 95% of the cases, when you focus on these habits, you're not going to receive the change that you are looking for. So in this video, I'll share with you why habits are important, because I'm not saying that they're not important, but I'll also share with you the actual thing that creates a change in your life. Because when you look at habits, and for example, going to the gym consistently, you could say, well, I made a habit out of going to the gym, and now I'm in the best shape of my life. So the habits resulted in this change. And of course, there's a slight truth to this, but the thing that I'm curious of is, why did you start doing the habit in the first place? What was the catalyst for you that you started doing these habits, that you started to go to the gym consistently? Because that is the thing that is actually creating a change. That is the catalyst. And the habits are a byproduct of that thing that is creating the change. So that's the thing that you want to be focusing on. I see habits more as a support system for the change. It is guiding the change. It is building a solid foundation from where you can change. But it's not the actual thing that is creating the change. Because if you look at habits on itself, if you start reading a book a week, you take the cold showers, you have the morning routines, you listen to the podcast consistently, if you start doing these habits, you are not going to experience a change. And this is something that I was stuck in my life when I was doing all of these things and I was busy and I felt productive because I was doing a lot, but I wasn't experiencing progress. And of course, you experience a little bit of progress when you do habits. You experience some progress, but if you look at the dreams that you are having, is some progress? Is this really going to cut it? Is an average pace, is that really going to support you in achieving the dreams that you have for your life? Like, of course not. You're looking for speed. You're looking for breakthroughs. You're looking for significant jumps in your life. And this is where I believe personal development has been pushed into the wrong direction. Because every single thing is about habits, about success habits, about the high performance habits. And I believe that when people watch content online, it's like, okay, these are the habits that made me successful. The video pops off and everybody looks at it and thinks, okay, I need to make videos about habits too. So everyone is making videos about habits and success habits, but this is not the thing that people must focus on to create a change. I would say that habits are there to keep you safe. They are there to protect you. Because all of a sudden we're focusing on little bit of progress. Let's start small. Let's take tiny steps. Let's do these habits. And in the accumulation of these habits, I will become successful. Again, there is a truth in this, but it's a truth that is keeping you safe, that is keeping you small. Because this is not the thing, if you're looking at significant change, that is going to support you. So that's why, if we go deeper into what is the thing that actually is going to create a change in your life, it is all about this statement. Put yourself in situations where you have no other option than to change. And this is not a sexy idea that I can sell you on, because it's way easier to tell you, read a book a week and you'll become a millionaire. But if I would tell you, you need to put yourself in this situation, you need to burn the boats, you need to take such a big risk where you almost feel like you're shitting yourself, where fear is taking over. When you do this, then you achieve your goals. Which idea is more tempting to sell you on? Of course, the habits is way easier because it feels safer. It is protecting you. But if you're looking at what is the thing that creates a change in your life, it is pressure. It is challenge. It is the actions where you don't feel that you're ready, where you don't think you can do it. It's a leap of faith. It's where you show courage. Because if you look back at your life, which moments in your life created a significant change? It wasn't that I started reading this book and now I became successful. And not to make fun of reading books, because I think reading books is very powerful as a support system for the goals that you're trying to achieve. But you need to focus on the thing before that, the thing that is actually creating a change. Because if you look back at your life, what do all of these moments where you took an action or you did something, you committed to something, where you didn't recognize yourself and your life anymore afterwards, what do all of these moments have in common? It is the uncertainty. It is the fear. There was a leap of faith. You put something on the line. You weren't ready yet. You didn't have all the answers. You had to show courage. Like, all of these things were present in the moments where you created the change. So this is what you need to be looking for in your life to create a change. But change is scary. It is so scary when people say things like, oh, change is fun. Like, it feels so good to grow. It feels so good to change. Like, it doesn't. Change is hard. Growth is hard. It is uncomfortable, especially when you start with change and you are in the middle of change. Of course, after the change and you look back at it, of course it feels good afterwards. But when you are in the process of change, it is extremely challenging. You feel so much pressure, you feel so much uncertainty, which is necessary for you to change. Because this is how you become the man that you know you could be. It is in pressure. So that's why you don't want to look for the safe option, the certain option, the option where it's easy, where it's comfortable, where it's fast and easy results. You want to look for the options that are uncertain, where you're taking a risk, where you're putting something on the line. That's the thing that will create a change. So I'm going to dissect this a little bit more in some nuances to give it a bit more direction and that is more actionable. So the foundational statement is put yourself in a situation where you have no other option than to change. So what does this look like? This, for example, looks like taking action before you are ready. Do the thing before you are ready. You are not supposed to feel ready. If you feel ready to do something, that means that you've waited way too long to create a change. Then you've prepared too much, you did too much research, because you don't need to do more research, you don't need to watch more content, you don't need to acquire more skills, you need to do the thing as fast as possible. That's what you need to focus on. Experience the thing as fast as possible. So if I, for example, look at my life, and this can be on a big scale, but also on a small scale. If you want to, for example, start coaching, you want to start a coaching business, don't read books about coaching or how to build a coaching practice. Don't look into certifications. Don't do any of that stuff. Get into your first coaching conversation as fast as possible. So this is on a small scale. Do the thing immediately before you feel ready. This is where you start learning massively. Like this is where you create significant jumps. So to give you a big example of my life, because the first time I got ill in my 20s, this was at least a 2-year period where I was going in and out of hospital. It was hell that I had to go through. And eventually when I was healed, I felt restless inside of me. And I knew I want to move outside of the Netherlands. So what I did was, and bear in mind, I never moved to a different country before. So I opened up Google Maps. And I looked around and I saw Portugal. So I thought, oh, Portugal, that sounds fun. And I looked at Portugal, I saw Lisbon, which is the capital, but usually the capitals of the cities or the countries, they don't attract me. So then I saw Porto and I thought, oh, Porto sounds awesome. I have never been to Porto before. I don't speak the language. I don't know anyone in the country. I just came out of an illness. So of course I was running my own business, but because of that whole period, I did have some income, but it was very unstable. There was some money coming in, but it was not certain. And I booked an Airbnb for a week. I booked a one-way ticket to Porto and I just figured it out. So with all of these things, like on paper, it was not a good idea to fly to Porto. And especially to give myself only a week to find an apartment, this was completely mental. And this is where ignorance is a bliss, because I just didn't know. I just felt like I want to go to Porto. I'd never done this before and I'm going to make the move. So when I was there, I had to let go of so many ideas about myself because I consider myself an introvert. I have introverted tendencies, so let's call it like that. But when I was there that week, I made a list of all real estate agencies that I was going to approach. So every single day I was walking up to so many agencies. I was making so many different connections because I had to find an apartment within a week. And walking into a business like that, where you don't speak the language, where I sometimes had to use Google Translate. So just imagine, I walked into a real estate agency, like a very luxurious one, and there were, at a big round table, there were 8 agents sitting there. And when I walked in, they all went completely silent and they looked at me like, what is this foreigner doing here? Like the fear that I experienced, especially as an introvert. And I didn't have to do that once. I had to do that in 20, 30, 40 agencies like that. Because I had no other choice than to find an apartment, because after the week, I did not have a place to live in that country. So eventually I found an agent that was supporting me, and he said, okay, I can help you find an apartment. What is the time frame, for example? And I told him, well, I have 5 days left to find an apartment. And he looked at me like, are you crazy? Like, are you insane? There are people looking for apartments for months here already, and they can't find any. You think you're going to find one in 5 days? So he thought I was crazy. But this is where, again, I had to learn so many new qualities. I was pushing, I was following up, and consistently, I was being so annoying because I had no other choice. So all the people-pleasing tendencies were out of the window. All these introverted tendencies were out of the window. Like, what will people think of me? I don't care what people will think of me. I need a place to live. So do you see, I put myself in such a situation where I had no other choice than to change. So these moments, I built character. I built these extroverted qualities. I removed these people-pleasing tendencies and all of this. I took action before I was ready. When I look back, I wouldn't do it again, never. So that's why I said ignorance is bliss. But this is where use that to your advantage. You don't know, so figure it out. Because that's where you develop the character that is the thing that you're truly after. It's not about the result, it's about who you become in the process. You've heard that before. But this is where you are developing the character that is creating the result. That's what you need to focus on. That's the reason why most people don't change. Because they focus on the strategies, they focus on information, they focus on the habits. But who's the person, who's the being, and what is the being that is doing the habit in the first place? The reason why not everybody is in peak shape, even though all the information is out there, all the strategies, all the habits are out there, because you don't need to focus on these things. You need to focus on who are you being? What is the identity? What are the characteristics of someone that is creating that change? You need to sculpt that version of you. And you do that by putting yourself in challenging, pressure, uncertain situations. So that's one, take action before you are ready. Second thing is make big, bold commitments that stretch you. So this is pretty similar. Of course, the first one was where you put yourself in a situation as fast as possible. But when you look at your goals and your dreams right now, do you know how you're going to be achieving them? Because when you set a goal, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm going to become a billionaire while you're still a student. Like these things are so far apart that you have no emotional connection to them. But if you set a goal that is really out of reach, that is really challenging, but you're so excited to achieve it, you feel in your heart that this is what I want to pursue. When you set a goal like that, you have to become someone different in the process. So like I said, when I gave that workout example, the habit of going to the gym consistently, there was a catalyst before that. Something that actually created that change where the habit of going to the gym was a byproduct of. So what is that thing? It's usually where you say enough is enough. Where you draw the line in the sand. I'm no longer going to live life like this. This is who I am right now. This is the life that I'm building and creating. So now you have a stretch goal. And when you have that stretch goal or a bold goal, that bold commitment, then you are forced to become someone different. So again, to give you a personal example, I was doing I am pretty consistent with my workouts. I have no problem with this. I had this already from a very young age. And I was training for handstands. So I was doing, let's say 4 times a week for 30 minutes every single workout. At the end of the workout, I was doing my handstands. So eventually I got up to a pretty decent level of handstands. So on 2 hands, I could make all kinds of transitions with my legs. I could do a press to handstand. And I noticed that every single time I practiced a new transition in the handstand, it wasn't really challenging me. So when I really sat down to think about, okay, what kind of goal am I going to pursue right now when it comes to my workouts? Because I wanted something to stretch me. And then the one-arm handstand, and even beyond the one-arm flag, the Figa, all of these positions within the one-arm handstand came to me. And when that goal came to me, I felt fear inside of my whole body because I knew what it would take of me to achieve that goal. Like the handstand is pretty easy. You can achieve the handstand very fast. When we're talking about the one-arm handstand, and I'm not talking about, let me just get into the one-arm handstand once, create a quick picture for Instagram, and now I did it. Like I'm talking about a consistent, almost circus level mastery one-arm handstand. If you have that kind of mastery and excellence in that skill, it takes years of dedication. And not just dedication as in, let me go to the gym 3 times a week to practice the handstand. And this is why when I set that goal of the one-arm handstand, because that's the first milestone, and to move beyond that, to really develop circus level mastery in my handstand, this required something completely different of me. Like, that's why I was also so afraid to commit to it, because now I was doing the 30 minutes after my workout of the handstand 4 times a week. Right now I'm training 6 times a week because I sadly need to have a rest day. So 6 times a week, 90 minutes a day, only handstand. I'm not talking about the yoga that I add to this or the stretching or the strength exercises that come on top of this. It is 90 minutes on average every single day, only handstands. And this is what I need to do for probably years to develop the level of mastery that I'm after. So you can see how that goal, that stretch goal, it required something different of me. It is not now the habit to like, oh, I go to the gym consistently for 90 minutes and I train the handstand. It's not that habit. That habit is a result of that commitment that I made because I had no other choice. I wouldn't achieve that goal if I go to the gym 2, 3, or 4 times a week, only for 30 minutes training some one-arm handstand stuff. So that's the thing that you need to look for when you look at your goals. Do you have goals that stretch you like that? Do you have these bold commitments? And that's the second thing. So that's the second thing when it comes to that foundational statement of put yourself in situations where you have no other option to change. Like it's in these moments, it's in these stretch goals, it's in these situations taking action before you are ready. And the third thing that I want to share about that is take action when you feel fear. Lean into the fear. Look for the moments where you are afraid, where you feel resistance, and do the thing anyway. So take action while you are afraid. This is where your biggest breakthroughs are. Because I would say fear really comes up when, in a lot of cases, I would say where your self-image is threatened. So when you feel like, oh, if this thing happens, or if I get judged, or if I get rejected, I'm not who I think I am, or what will other people think of me? So when you put something on the line, often case your self-image, sometimes you put money on the line, that's also something, but the best thing to put on the line is your self-image, who you think you are. Because if you want to grow and change, you need to let go of the idea of who you think you are and how you think the world works to step into the different version of you. So this is a process of death. And it's an extremely difficult process to go through. So this is where are you afraid to do something? Because when you do that thing anyway, that's when you became someone different. That's when you show that you were bigger than the fear and bigger than the stories that you currently have. That is the thing that is creating a change in your life. And this is why I said change is not fun. When people say change is fun, like if you are scared shitless to do something and you do the thing anyway, this process is not fun. Of course, the freedom and confidence that's on the other side of this, that feels good, that is fun, like that's what you want to cultivate more of. But that action of leaning into your fear, that's so difficult. It is so difficult. And when we're talking about fear, I'm not necessarily talking about the big things. Of course, you can look for the big leaps of faith and the big risks that you want to be taking. But how about the little things around you? Because there's so much gold around you. Are you afraid to speak up and set a boundary in a certain relationship? Are you maybe afraid to let go of friendships? Are you maybe afraid of these type of confrontations? Are you afraid to ask for a promotion? It's in these little things. Are you afraid to launch your product before it's ready? Are you afraid to make a bold request? Are you afraid to ask that girl out that you find attracted? Are you afraid to speak to strangers and start these conversations? Like it's in all of these things when you lean into your fear. And of course, it must also be kind of related to your goals. And at the same time, it doesn't have to, because every single time you lean into fear and you move with the fear, I guarantee you there's so much growth on the other side of this. Because I remember when I considered myself still an introvert. So this was the idea about myself. Like I am an introvert. Whenever I talk to people, I feel drained, and every single time I'm with a group of people, I'm afraid and I don't know what to say. I'm socially anxious, and when I'm all by myself, I feel this release. I feel this, I can finally breathe. I feel this peace, this freedom. So I must be an introvert. All the tests that I did online tell me that I'm an introvert. So this is the story that I tell about myself. This is my self-image that I've created. But when I look at the goals that I want to achieve, like I don't want to stay stuck in this social anxious state. I want to learn how to talk to people. I want to be developing my communication skills. I want to become better at this. I want to learn how to be charismatic, or I want to learn how to function normally in group, and I don't want to be that anxious. So now I have a decision to make. Am I going to hold on to this identity of I am an introvert, or am I going to let go of this and develop these extroverted skills of talking to strangers? Because if you look at your life, are you afraid to say hello to a stranger? Are you afraid to strike up a conversation with a stranger? Because if something is holding you back there, you can already see that this is where you are not free. This is where you are, let's say, experiencing prisons of yourself. And this is where I had to develop the skill eventually, because also when I got, for example, out of a 6.5-year relationship, like this was huge. This is where I didn't want to use dating apps to start dating. I wanted to learn how to approach women on the street because I wanted these natural interactions to happen. But I was scared shitless to do this. I had all these rules and all these ideas and all these fears in my mind of you can't do this because of this, you're weird, you're a creep, you're whatever. And all that I would be doing is saying hi to someone. And doing that thing that I was afraid of doing, that's where the biggest change happened in my life. Like doing that thing, leaning into the fear, even though all these stories are present, even though all these rules of what you think life is supposed to be like, who you think you are, if you take action, regardless of these stories, regardless of the fear, that's when you will create a change. That's when you are building character. So these are the moments that you want to be looking for consistently in life. Where are you afraid? Lean into your edge, lean into your fear. So again, these are the things that create an actual change in your life. It is not the habits. Of course, the habits are a support system to the change, but these are, let's say, the catalysts to change. Of course, there are more catalysts to change, but I would say these are foundational. Especially that statement, put yourself in a situation where you have no other option to change. That's the thing that you need to focus on.